Skull Nation, we are officially inside the most electric week of the entire NFL offseason, and the Minnesota Vikings are right in the middle of every single story that matters. The 2026 NFL Draft is here. Pittsburgh is the stage, and this franchise is walking into that building carrying more questions, more intrigue, and more high-stakes drama than just about any team in the league. We've got a quarterback pulling a social media move that the whole Vikings media world is buzzing about. We've got a tight end prospect so freakishly athletic that grown men in NFL front offices are losing sleep over whether he'll still be available at pick 18. We've got a beloved offensive lineman returning to his college city to represent this franchise on the biggest stage of his career. And we've got a pass rusher whose trade situation is getting hotter by the hour, while the front office keeps telling us to relax. Relax is not in our vocabulary today, Skull Nation. Lock in. Let's start with the beautiful, symbolic, straight-out-of-a-movie moment that the NFL handed the Vikings heading into this draft weekend. The league announced that right tackle Brian O'Neill will be on the stage in Pittsburgh to announce the Vikings' second and third-round picks on Friday night. And yes, you heard that right, Pittsburgh. The city where Brian O'Neill played his college football at the University of Pittsburgh. The city where he earned first-team All-ACC honors as a senior. The city that launched a career that has turned him into one of the most respected and dependable offensive linemen in the entire NFL since the Vikings selected him in the second round of the 2018 draft. He is going back to his stomping grounds to announce the next generation of Vikings. That is not an accident. That is not a random name pulled from a hat. That is the NFL recognizing what everyone inside that organization already knows. Brian O'Neill is the living, breathing identity of this franchise. He is one of only 4 active players in the entire league chosen to announce picks at this draft, joining Pittsburgh's own Joey Porter Jr., Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans, and James Conner of the Cardinals. He is part of a group of 7 former Pitt alumni announcing picks at this event, which tells you how much the league leaned into the Pittsburgh connection in curating this moment. And think about what it says about where this organization is right now. When you want to put a face to your franchise on a national stage, you choose the guy who shows up every week, protects his quarterback without complaining, earns Pro Bowl recognition without demanding the spotlight, and carries himself with the kind of quiet professionalism every coach in the league wishes they could bottle up and distribute to their entire roster. The Vikings are telling the world who they are heading into the 2026 season, and the face they chose is number 75. That matters beyond the ceremony because O'Neill himself is entering what could be a pivotal final stretch of his own career. He is in the last year of his current deal, and the Vikings have been working toward an extension that would keep him in Minnesota for the rest of his playing days. Getting that done is one of the quieter but more important pieces of business this front office has on its plate. Because when your franchise is rebuilding its identity around a new quarterback, a new general manager yet to be named, and a defense being reconstructed from the ground up, the last thing you want is instability on the offensive line protecting Kyler Murray. Brian O'Neill walking to that podium in Pittsburgh on Friday night isn't just a heartwarming moment, it's a message. The continuity is here. The foundation is intact. Now let's talk about the quarterback who is decidedly not projecting quiet confidence this week because J.J. McCarthy just did something that nobody saw coming, and the Vikings media world has been buzzing about it ever since. 2 of the most prominent voices covering this team daily, SKOR North's Phil Mackey and Declan Goff, revealed on their podcast that McCarthy has blocked both of them on the X social media platform, not the main SKOR North account, not other journalists. Specifically and individually these 2 guys. And here is the twist that makes this story so layered and so fascinating. Mackey and Goff have been among the most patient and supportive voices in the entire Vikings media landscape when it comes to McCarthy. They said it themselves plainly. Their takes on JJ have been largely positive, even in the face of what Mackey described as massive universal criticism from virtually everywhere else. They were allies to the McCarthy movement when allies were hard to find. And they got blocked. Now there are theories. The most generous one, and honestly the one that makes the most practical sense, is that somebody managing McCarthy's social media accounts, not McCarthy himself, made a sweep of account, and now a two-time Pro Bowler in Kyler Murray has arrived to compete for the job he expected to own. The mental weight of that situation is not small. And there is a history here that makes the blocking move feel more personal than accidental. McCarthy has publicly acknowledged that he reads what is being said about him. He posted that now famous quote months ago. "Keep every stone they throw at you. You've got castles to build." And that is not the kind of message you post if you are blissfully unaware of the public narrative around you. That is the message of someone who feels hunted, someone who is taking the criticism personally and using it as fuel. Whether that is healthy or counterproductive is genuinely a question worth asking. Channeling outside noise into motivation can be one of the most powerful tools an athlete has. But the history of quarterbacks and other players who became consumed by the noise, who started playing for the critics instead of the game, is long and sobering. The pressure on McCarthy right now as he tries to prove himself in a quarterback room that includes not just Murray but also Carson Wentz as the backup is unlike anything he has faced before. What his head does with that pressure in the next few months could define the next few years of his career. Now let's get to the offensive piece that has everyone talking heading into Thursday night, because the Vikings and Kenyon Sadiq is a story that will not stop generating conversation no matter how many times the draft media tries to move on to the next thing. The Oregon tight end is arguably the most athletically freakish player in this entire class. He ran the 40-yard dash in 4.39 seconds at the NFL Scouting Combine, the fastest time recorded by a tight end in over a decade of Combine history. He posted a 43.5-inch vertical jump. He recorded an 11-foot 1-inch broad jump. He bench pressed 26 reps. His overall athleticism score came in at the 99th percentile among all tight ends. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer called him flat out the most intriguing player in this entire draft, arguing that he has the best chance of any player in the class, tight end or receiver, to become the focal point of a passing game at the next level. And the Vikings met with him before the draft. Here is why Sadiq makes such a fascinating case for Minnesota specifically. Yes, TJ Hawkinson is still on the roster. Yes, the Vikings have legitimate defensive needs that many analysts argue should take priority at pick 18. But strip away the surface-level roster analysis and look at the bigger picture this organization is trying to paint. Hawkinson reworked his contract this offseason in a restructure that gave the Vikings more financial flexibility. And the final year was removed from his deal, which means he becomes an unrestricted free agent next spring. The Vikings are one offseason away from needing a long-term answer at the tight end position. And here's the part that is making Kevin O'Connell's offensive mind light up like a switchboard. Sadiq is not a traditional tight end. He is a matchup nightmare that cannot be covered by a linebacker or kept up with by a safety. He is a player who can line up at tight end, in the slot, or even split wide. Someone who gives O'Connell the kind of positional flexibility that turns good offenses into unstoppable ones. Pair that kind of weapon with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, two of the most dangerous receivers in the NFC, and add in a Kyler Murray offense that was designed from the ground up to weaponize dynamic athletes who can create after the catch. And you start to see why teams are genuinely terrified of this combination. His production numbers at Oregon, 75 catches for 868 yards and 10 touchdowns in his final 2 college seasons, were good without being eye-popping. But the circumstances surrounding those numbers matter. Oregon used him creatively in a scheme designed to create mismatches rather than force-feed him volume, and his ceiling at the next level, according to scouts who compared him to Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals, is substantially higher than anything his college statistics suggest. The Vikings have 9 picks in this draft. They have the flexibility to take Sadiq at 18 and still address defensive line or safety on day 2. The real question is whether he is still on the board when Minnesota walks to the podium Thursday night. And speaking of the defense, because we cannot have a single Vikings conversation without circling back to the pass rush situation that refuses to stop generating headlines. Jonathan Greenard's trade status is officially back in full boil mode heading into draft weekend, and this time it comes with a detail that changes everything about how you read the front office's public statements. The Philadelphia Eagles have been the frontrunners in Greenard trade discussions for weeks. The basic framework of a deal has been out there. Minnesota wants a premium day 2 pick, either a second rounder or a high third, and Philadelphia has the ammunition to make it happen with their own pick sitting at number 54 in round 2 and Noserbers 68 and 98 in round 3. The Eagles need an edge rusher after Jalen Phillips left for Carolina, and Greenard, despite a down 2025 season limited to 3 sacks in 12 games due to a shoulder injury, is a Pro Bowl caliber player at his best who posted 12.5 sacks just 1 year earlier. Now, here is where it gets genuinely dramatic. Interim GM Rob Brzezinski stood in front of cameras and told reporters he expects Greenard to be part of this team. He praised him as a great player, a special person, a leader. He pushed back on the trade speculation loudly and publicly. And then, Greenard did not show up for the team's voluntary off-season workouts. Not present. Nowhere to be found at the facility while his teammates were getting back on the field for the first phase of the off-season program. Whether that is a coincidence or a calculated move by a player who knows his contract situation puts him in an uncomfortable spot is genuinely unclear. What is very clear is that a player who wants to stay somewhere shows up when his team opens the doors, even when the workouts are voluntary. And a reporter at The Guardian reportedly discussed the Greenard to Philadelphia trade on a podcast as if it were already a completed deal before quickly walking it back, adding yet another layer of smoke to a fire that the front office keeps insisting does not exist. The bigger picture on Greenard is this. He is entering year 7 in the league. He played through a shoulder injury that required season-ending surgery last year. He is making $19 million annually on a contract that puts him in an awkward middle ground. Not cheap enough to easily absorb, not elite enough to be untouchable. And he has reportedly told the organization he would like a new deal. The Vikings, navigating a significant salary cap deficit while also trying to sign Brian O'Neill, manage Jordan Addison's extension discussions, and absorb Kyler Murray's new contract, are not equipped to give Greenard a raise right now. That creates exactly the kind of structural friction that, historically, ends with one of two outcomes. Either both sides find a way to make peace with the current situation, or one side blinks and a trade happens. The draft could be the catalyst that forces that decision. If Minnesota selects an outside linebacker or a pass rusher in round 1 or round 2, Thursday or Friday, read that as a signal. The Greenard era in Minnesota may be drawing to a close. Now put all of this together, Skull Nation, because when you do, the picture that emerges is not chaos. It is a franchise that is 3 critical decisions away from being the most dangerous team in the NFC North. Brian O'Neill on that Pittsburgh stage represents the stable, unshakable core that every contender needs, an anchor who shows up and does his job while everyone else debates the drama. J.J. McCarthy's social media moment is a window into the mind of a young quarterback who feels the pressure of the biggest competition of his life and is building his mental walls accordingly. Whether those walls help him or hurt him is the question that hangs over every quarterback rep between now and the first week of September. Kenyon Sadiq is the kind of generational offensive weapon that does not come along every year. A player who, if he lands in Kevin O'Connell's system, could turn a very good offense into a genuinely terrifying one. And Jonathan Greenard's situation is the canary in the coal mine for this entire defensive rebuild. If he goes, this team needs the draft to deliver immediate solutions on that side of the ball. Green Bay is spending. Detroit is confident, Chicago is rebuilding, but none of them are walking into this draft weekend with the kind of loaded, multi-layered storylines that Minnesota is carrying into Pittsburgh. None of them have a quarterback competition this compelling, a potential pick 18 weapon this electrifying, or a pass rusher trade this genuinely uncertain. This is the draft that could define the next 3 years of this franchise, and we are going to be here for every single second of it. Skull Nation, here is what I need from you right now. Smash that like button if you believe Brian O'Neill announcing picks in Pittsburgh Friday night is one of the best storylines of this entire draft weekend. Drop a comment below and tell me, do the Vikings take Kenyon Sadiq at 18, or do they go defense? And if you are not subscribed yet, every single subscriber on this channel makes a Packers fan cry into their cheese. Do it right now. We are going live Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with full draft coverage, hot takes, and all the Skull Nation energy you can handle. The draft is here. The board is set. The Vikings are ready. We ride together.